And I want to talk about the economics, not the obvious moral, ethical, simply decent human behavior that these workers are demanding that their employer enforce. I want to talk about what it means that women across the board are subjected to sexual harassment and sexual abuse on the job. Here are some of the economic costs. We'll never know how many women quit a job, even if though they were capable, skillful, more skillful, perhaps, than many of the men. But they couldn't get that job. They couldn't get the promotion. They couldn't show what they could do. They couldn't contribute all they had because they couldn't tolerate the level of sexual harassment and abuse, so they quit. How many women, might you guess, didn't even go into whole kinds of jobs where they could have done stunning work because it was considered to be unsafe, unappetizing, unfriendly to women because of sexual harassment? We now know, of course, that women can do all that work. During World War II, Rosie the Riveter was the image of the women who did all the work that the men used to do and excluded the women from. But the men went to war, and so the women had to step up, which they did, and they did it very well. But we keep the women out. We keep the women down. I remember going to my university classes and noticing that the professor had a different attitude to the women in the class compared to the men. They weren't considered quite as serious because they were going into a man's field. In other words, not only are the women repressed, not only does our economy suffer from not giving women the chance to show what they can do, to make the contribution they're capable of, but we already build that in a kind of unspoken discrimination in the very learning process, often in the very admissions process as to who gets into what kind of field in the university, in the selection of courses, in the training programs. We have suffered staggeringly for a long time in giving half of the population a hard deal when it comes to jobs and work and promotion and recognition, and we have lost all that they could have produced. Hats off to the women and the men at the McDonald's restaurant for saying, we won't do this anymore. Making that Me Too movement be not only something about the just treatment of women, but also something about giving our society the benefit of the creativity of people whose offer had been rejected by means of sexual harassment.